The proposal is for refusal. We have a seconder. I'm going to put that to you. All in favour of refusal, please show. How many? 14. Against? No. Abstain? 4. That is refused. Thank you very much.
The recommendation to this application, in that we're minded to grant planning permission is the recommendation as a result of the national planning policy.
Bishop, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yesterday, the National Planning Casework Unit for the Department for Communities and Local Government contacted the Council to say that they'd had representations relating to this application. As a result, they've asked us not to formally determine the application today or to issue a planning permission, but that doesn't prevent the committee reviewing the application and making a recommendation. If members are minded to grant planning permission, that information will be passed to the National Planning Casework Unit, and then the Secretary of State will consider whether the application is called in or not.
Parish Council then, Mrs Kay and Mrs Parker. Whenever you're ready, no problem. Take it easy.
Good afternoon, committee. Leintwardine Group Parish Council was not surprised by the strength of local opposition to the planning application before you this afternoon. However, we did a lot of work before we submitted our objection. We engaged with our community and they responded by volunteering with the exercises we have undertaken and with enormous support. We consulted experts in fields such as ecology, archaeology, rural issues, engineering, transport and planning. Our objection is therefore based not only on the strength of feeling from our community, but also on our research, which shows that this application should be rejected based on current planning law and policy. I am now going to hand over to our planning consultant to speak on our behalf.
The main objections from the Parish Council in relation to this application relate to the impact on the character of the area, the landscape setting, the Roman settlement, and all these issues are interlinked. In addition to that, the impact on the highways and the impact that this development will have on the size of the existing village. In relation to the impact on the character of the area, the applicant acknowledges that this application has an impact on the landscape setting of the area. Indeed, in their landscape and visual impact appraisal submitted with the application, it's stated, it is acknowledged the proposals will result in an extension of the village settlement further into the countryside, which would result in an erosion of the existing pastoral setting to the east of Leintwardine. Leintwardine has a compact rectangular form. The scheduled monument of Bravinium or Branagenium is of national significance. Leintwardine has developed over a considerable period of time from Roman through medieval to the present day. Most recent development has remained on the higher ground of Mocktree Hill, helping to preserve this setting of the village, the scheduled monument and the conservation area. Leintwardine's hilltop setting means that it has a distinct separation from the surrounding countryside. Once that setting is lost, it's lost forever. It can't be brought back. The impacts of this development are of national significance. It isn't about the archaeology found in the ground, it's about the shape and form of the existing village and how it's evolved over the years. However, to the east of the village is Middle Wardens, where development has begun to creep away from the higher ground. This, when you look at it from the surrounding area, is visually intrusive and breaks away from the existing settlement form and is a poor benchmark for future decisions. More of the same should not be encouraged. This development stretches down the hill to the east from the village and has a significant effect on the setting, the form of the Roman settlement and the character, encroaching into the countryside.
I think you'll find that's it.
Right.
I'm sorry about that, but that's the rules, or they are the rules. So we move along now to the next set of speakers. The objectors in this case are Mr. Collins, who I think I met yesterday, and Mrs. Naomi Vera Sanso, and they're going to do their best to get it all in 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. The development of 45 houses on one site over the next 5 years is disproportionate and clearly not sustainable. The southern half of the land under consideration is not suitable for residential development. The houses will be built directly opposite an industrial estate and a sewage works. The southeast corner of the site is part of a floodplain of the River Tees. The consultants employed by Framptons have stated that poor infiltration was observed during soakaway tests on the site. The rainwater runoff from the fully developed site will increase the severity and frequency of surface water flooding already being experienced by Rosemary Lane residents and occupiers. I'll now hand over to Naomi.
Leintwardine has welcomed development in the past, with 44 houses built in the last 14 years. So why has this proposal attracted 198 objections and a petition signed by 373 people? And there has not been a single letter in support, even from local businesses. It is because the development is too large and disproportionate. It will be located outside the recognised village boundary on a sensitive and inappropriate site, affecting the setting of a historic scheduled monument and access by a lane too narrow for the purpose. It will severely strain village infrastructure and increase pollution and traffic. There is negligible employment in the village and shrinking opportunities nearby. Benson's Heating in Knighton has just closed down, affecting 150 people. Any potential economic benefit would be short-term and highly probable that labour, skills and supplies will be contracted from outside the county. One of the objectors is the head teacher at Leintwardine Primary School, who was not consulted by the developer, suggesting poor community engagement. It is questionable whether there is room to build another classroom on the school site, so a potential result is more pollution from driving children to other village schools. I'm sure that from your own ward work councillors you will recognise that there is often a disjuncture between what on-the-ground utility workers describe and what head office says, and in Leintwardine the sewage system is at maximum capacity, with episodes of overspill into various properties. The access will be via a 3.5 metre single track lane, not the 5 metres stated. We know, we've measured it. There are no plans to widen the road for vehicle traffic, and the lane is more heavily used than Framptons suggest. Our own survey conducted over 14 days showed 32% more traffic than their one-day survey. The development could bring 70 to 100 cars into the village, bringing additional hazards, accident potential, congestion and pollution. This will also impact the fire station further up the lane, which has frequent issues with cars blocking the routes out. This cannot be dismissed as a traffic regulation issue. There are no traffic wardens in Leintwardine. It needs a practical understanding based on the rural context.
Thank you very much. We come to a supporter, Mrs. Steele, who was the applicant's agent. Mrs. Steele, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Louise Steele. I'm from Framptons Planning and I act on behalf of LWD Developments Limited. As the officers have summarised, the proposal is for a residential development resulting in an efficient use of the site. The site will meet the need for new homes. Up to 45 dwellings are proposed. This represents a contribution to housing delivery, including high-quality family housing in an area of housing need. We have worked hard with officers who have pressed us hard to reduce down the scale of the scheme. The Council's own Strategic Housing Land Availability Assessment states that the site is suitable for 70 houses. The proposal is only for 45. The site is identified in that report as having low to minor constraints. We have undertaken community engagement very seriously, and this has helped to shape the evolution of the proposals. Consultation undertaken included a meeting with the Parish Council and a public exhibition at the Leintwardine Village Hall. Our public exhibition presented 7 boards of detailed information illustrating the proposals. At that time we proposed 63 houses. We listened to the comments received during the consultation, and following consultation with the officers, it was decided to reduce the number of houses down to 45, increase the amount of open space on the site, and include more bungalows. The proposals will also include the delivery of over 1 hectare of open space, including the creation of a centrally located play area. The site is positioned in a sustainable location within the wider context of Leintwardine. The site is in walking distance of the primary school and nursery, the shops, the village hall, the library and community centre, 2 pubs, the church and the chapel, the new medical centre, the butchers, the petrol station and bus stops, and public open space including the playing field and the village green. The villages are defined as a main village in the saved UDP policy and as a village suitable for proportionate housing increase in the emerging development plan. It will therefore be a sustainable location for development. Whilst design is a reserved matters, the illustrative master plan indicates a development that reflects the character of the location. The application site will form a new edge to the settlement, which bears responsibility for sensitive design. The creation of a strong green infrastructure along the eastern and northern boundary will help strengthen the existing boundary, creating an attractive rural edge. The footpaths on the site will be retained, enhancing connectivity to the site to the village. Further benefits of the scheme are set out in the Section 106 draft, include contributions to local infrastructure, including education, sustainable transport, libraries and recycling. There will also be jobs and economic benefits created during construction. We have worked hard with officers to provide the highest quality scheme. There are no technical objections from statutory consultees, including heritage, landscape, transport, flood...
That's it, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. We come now to the local member, the acting local member, if you like, for the moment. Councillor Favour, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, acting very much. Who could ever fulfil the role of Mrs. Barnett? I'm sure members and the community would recognise that. Can I first of all thank those members who were able to attend the site visit yesterday. I think that was a very important meeting to see, and those of you that were unable to get there, I hope that you will take on some of the observations that were made by those that were there. Can I thank also the speakers, and of course it's not surprising that you will find this has been very much a contentious matter in the community, with 198 objections and a petition of 373 people, and of course references also made and film units from the BBC. Whilst I recognise that you know that the emerging local plan can be given no weight and the diminishing weight of the UDP and core strategy, the national planning policy framework is very much in evidence. And you as a planning committee have great experience of having these type of applications coming in of houses now as we have this problem with our 5-year land supply. And we await many appeals to help to determine that, not least of course the 6 that are outstanding in Barter Street and Withington. But the fact of the matter is that this is Leintwardine. And those of you that went to the site visit yesterday will know where Leintwardine is, I'm sure. Well, it is considerably further north than Ludlow. And therefore, I think you have to recognise that you view that context. And when we look at its sustainable development in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework, the sustainability of the local area is important. It is a long way from Hereford City and from some of those other substantial villages where you have had to wrestle with these decisions of considerable housing increases. Here you are talking about an increase. If we increase by the amount of houses by what we are proposing in our core strategy, that would be about 35 or 36. Here we are talking at 45 in one fell swoop. We are now talking about Leintwardine. Let us look at the economy and sustainability of that area. We are talking about South Shropshire, West Palace. Our job centres are locally will be Knighton, Craven Arms, Ludlow and Prestine. They are not major cities of employment and they are all suffering greatly. There is no big economic push for these types of houses. There is the local need that will be reflected in due time with proper consultation on the neighbourhood plan. What this actually fulfills is what I call Ludlow lifers. People who are living miles away, who actually want to retire to a place in Herefordshire, who actually have concluded their economic activity. And therefore it doesn't meet the actual sustainable needs of this community, which is absolutely paramount to the National Planning Policy Framework. Also, there are traffic grounds. Rosemary Lane, those of you who saw, is not consistently 5 metres. It is a minor country road with 2 pinch points. It has a fire station and Welsh water there. The traffic monitoring the parish council did over a 14-day period showed a 1/3 increase in traffic than the 1 day from the consultants, and that is a highway that floods, and this application will increase that risk. Those of you that at the site visit also saw the actual setting of the site itself. The fact of the matter is it is set on a prominent hill which sharply defines the setting of the Roman settlement. While the existing edge may not be too soft, the fact of the matter is this site provides a buffer between the existing settlement and the outstanding landscape. And when it comes to the actual site itself, there is the issue of drainage and particularly of flooding. Most of the site is in flood zone 1, but the actual sud itself and those measures are actually in the lowest point. And those of you who visited the site yesterday will have saw the amount of water that is on the neighbouring ground. Now, I'm not a technical expert, but I do know something about gravity. And if you build a subterranean pond, it will either get filled up because the land next door is lower, or and then for any other water that comes down from this site will go on and become an increasing threat to flooding, and also particularly onto Rosemary Lane itself. All these matters start to make an adverse impact of significance, which to me outweighs the benefits, which is the fundamental issue about sustainable development. So it is for that. And similarly also, there's no room at the school. On affordable housing, you have heard what has been said about that. There is a surgery here at Leintwardine. We have an ageing population. It would make sense, therefore, probably to have a far greater provision of bungalows to address that sustainable development need of the local community. This particular application does not meet the local sustainability need. And whilst it may be called in by the casework unit, the clearest clarity today can be actually to refuse it. And using as your examples under the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraphs 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 55, 32, 109 and 131, 156, and above all also paragraphs 178 to 181, where is the reference also to the sustainability of the neighbouring counties and the remaining economic and social and environmental requests and pressures from South Shropshire and West Powys. That is more pertinent and relevant to the community of Leintwardine than probably Herefordshire itself, and therefore is relevant in National Planning Policy Framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Edwards, please, first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I applaud the work and endeavour that Councillor Phillips has put into it. He's done an excellent job in picking up all of the salient points for Leintwardine and its surrounding area. I was going to be much more simple because I can now, having heard that, rely on what the acting ward councillor has said, including quoting all of the policies. I asked one question when I drove some 41 miles from Hereford, albeit went to other locations as well at the site visits yesterday. And yes, I'm privileged to be in a position to attend site visits. And the question I asked, looking round, was, how can this site be sustainable? The planning officer at least nodded, and he's nodded again now. When I asked, where will the folks who are going to become tenants pay their rent or actually pay their mortgages for these, albeit reduced number of 45 houses? It does not make sustainable sense to me to be approving quite a large number of houses so far away from main services, albeit Leintwardine has done well by gaining its local services. There will be many, many needs to go out of Leintwardine and come back if these houses are built. Someone commented yesterday, you can get your food online these days. Yeah, how many more vehicle visit is that going to be into Rosemary Lane for 45 houses? It doesn't matter how you do it. It does mean transport when you're in such a semi-remote area of North Herefordshire compared to some of the wider flourishing parishes and villages throughout the county. So on that alone, I would propose refusal. It's lack of local sustainability. Quoting obviously S1 and each and every one of the paragraphs from the NPPF. On a lesser issue, really, the issue about surface water, no agreement for affordable homes. Well, how often do we come forward for multiples of over 10 or 15 and no agreement for affordable homes? That may be the wishes of the community if these 45 homes are actually imposed on them. But how will Leintwardine flourish with monies off-site from there in exchange for affordable homes going elsewhere in the county? No wonder the locality is still up in arms. 198 objections, plus all of the 373 persons with objecting in varying ways. I'm absolutely amazed that this application has got this far. I propose refusal, and I hope that all of the key comments and policies quoted by the Acton Ward Councillor will substantiate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blackshaw, please.
Chairman, thank you. I'm conscious this is an outline application and we are required not to determine the decision today, but to perhaps make a recommendation. I must say it's very powerful to witness a community in full flow and to see a public gallery as full as it is. I'm also conscious that this site is embraced within the Schlar itself, which has a certain poignancy to it. The 45 houses, I wonder if I could just ask officers to give a clarification, to go back to the point I made in the previous application this morning, is in relation, that 45 in number, in relation to the recommended growth within Leintwardine embraced within the core strategy, if we could get some indication as to what percentage we are at if we include those 45 houses. There's mention within the documentation, and in particular response from the Parish Council, that the Bravinium monument and the Roman settlement is in contrary to paragraph 133 of the NPPF, and perhaps officers could give a view on that. But I would also quite like some clarification, just visually, as to where the monument is, and indeed where the Roman settlement is in relation to this site, if it was possible just to point that out. But in anticipation of that, I personally have difficulty with this application. I look forward to comments from the committee members.
Councillor Greenow, please.
Thank you. Here we go again, another big developer in even a more remote part of Hereford than you can ever get. It's far and beyond again. And yet we're saying this is a sustainable location for 57 dwelling. I think that's just nonsense. We've also got once again in the write-up the neighbour development plan mentioned, but you can't do anything about it because it means nothing. So you're working hard, but it doesn't, it still makes me angry, and it still will. I know I get the finger wagging from over there, but why are we getting these people all involved? Why do we talk about the Localism Act? Why we've got 180 letters of objection, when we've got a petition of 373 people to say it counts for nothing? I want to say in this committee it counts for everything to me, and I hope to the rest of the members. We must listen to what the locals want and what they need in their area. We must listen to what's sustainable and what's not. How can it be sustainable to build that quantity of houses in a place where you have to have a car to get there and back? There's nothing else there. Why is it sustainable? You have to travel 20 or 30 miles to go to work or to go to a decent supermarket. It is not sustainable. So why are we bringing these things forward and saying we're minded to approve them? Let's listen to the locals. Let's make them know that they're worth what they do. The parish council, they sit every month or every 2 months, they go through the village maps, they do the work, they consult with the people to be told you're wasting your time, because we're going to recommend it for approval. I urge everybody to turn this down. All the documents there, all the reasons are there. If you want to get them all, their planning consultant, which they hired, was here somewhere, wrote them in there. This is certainly not sustainable. Why are we even thinking about it? It should be turned down flatly. That's my point.
Thank you. Baldwin, I think, is next. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I went to the site visit yesterday as a subsidiary temporary acting local member, as Councillor Phillips couldn't get there. And a very interesting site visit it was too. And only when you get there do you realise how extraordinarily prominent in the landscape is this site. It's in full view from across the valley where the busy main road from Ludlow to Leintwardine goes, and not to put too fine a point upon it, it will be a blot upon the landscape. I think that probably describes it quite well. It is an enormous great site, stretches right up the bank, and there's no way you're going to lose that with landscaping or trees or anything else. It is a convex site and will be very, very prominent and very visible, I'm afraid. There's also, as has been raised before, the matter of the narrow lane. It is definitely more like 3.5 metres than 5 metres over the majority of its structure, I think. And the traffic from the site debouches onto this narrow lane, but worse, the fire station is on the opposite side of this lane and already gets blocked in from time to time. How much worse will this be if all these extra cars are pouring onto this lane? Think about it. If your house was on fire, you wouldn't be very happy to think that Rosemary Lane was awash with cars and a fire engine couldn't get you. Well, it doesn't bear thinking about, is it? Also, the Leintwardine sewage works just off this lane, and when the prevailing wind blows, the pond, which will be wafting over the proposed site, will be exceedingly unpleasant. It may not be a planning, I think it probably could be a planning term, because it is not something you should be subjecting any new housing to. And employment, we've talked about that. What employment for residents of these houses? No local employer, and I have talked to them, has any vacant jobs. So, we suppose that most people will be using their cars for longish journeys to wherever their jobs might be. And the school is quite full, and it's unlikely that it could take all the children from the 45 houses, and it will be very difficult to build anything more at schools, because the government just the other day said they are going to cut down to nothing the amount of money they give to councils, to local councils, for building and repairing schools. We will have to find it out of our ever-decreasing back pockets. And I don't suppose this council, or many others, have any money spare in that particular department. So it doesn't look very promising, does it, either?
How are we doing with your list?
We're just about there.
Thank you.
So, basically, I would urge you to throw out this proposal and vote against the recommendation. It is not sustainable. It is not wanted by the village. It has very little going for it indeed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next door, Councillor Kenyon, please.
How do you follow that, Chairman? Everything's been said pretty much. Like I said this morning...
That's what I thought, Councillor.
I really do hold the council at fault for not having this core strategy in place. 4 years to be the councillor, nearly, and it's always gone on about this. These applications come from all over. We need to get our... I won't say what I normally say. We need to get our stuff into a sock and get it sorted and protect these villages. Some things are worth fighting for, and this is worth fighting for. Let's roll up our sleeves and say to these developers, we don't want rampant development in Herefordshire. We want what's right. We want it to grow organically. If it's right, it's right. But this is definitely wrong. And if I haven't formally seconded it, I will second it now.
I think we've got some... Thank you. Councillor Norman, please.
Thank you, Chair. I went on the site visit and I also know this area quite well and very much concur with the points that have been made already. This is a very isolated village, even in Herefordshire terms, way up in the north, very far from areas of development, urban development, jobs and all the rest of it, as has points that have been made. I agree with virtually every point that's been made, so I won't repeat them all in detail, but we'll pick out 2 or 3 that I think are particularly important. First one is the character of the village, the setting of this village. We've heard about the historic importance of parts of it. We're aware, anyone who's been there, of the landscape value of this area. It's a beautiful, beautiful setting, and this development will do nothing but compromise that setting. And I think that's an extremely important part of this whole debate, and it's one we must not forget. So that would be my first reason for refusing this is that particular point. Second point in relation to that is, even if that were not the case, I do believe that the number of houses, I appreciate that the number has been reduced substantially, but it's still far too large a number to be imposing, particularly in one block, on a village of this size. I think the second point is particularly important, and again, for anyone who knows this area, is the access road. It is incredibly narrow, and again, have been along it many times with great difficulty. I've visited the pub many times, and that is often a point of congestion, people trying to park. I have damage on my car at the moment, concurred in trying to get through and to park near the pub, and I know local people get very upset and concerned about this, but it is the reality. It's a very narrow road, even for the movement that takes place as things are, and to add to that in any way is going to make it a great deal worse. I understand from somewhere in the report, I haven't been able to locate it just now, that there are in the village already unoccupied, fairly new development, so I think that raises a question we should be considering. There is no indication, again, unless I've missed it, I appreciate this is outlined, but we have, in the words of one of our councillors who isn't here at the moment, we have nothing to vote for, nothing to support, nothing beautiful, wonderful design, high energy standards or anything like that. I also agree with the points that have been made about local feeling, which is obviously overwhelmingly of real concern to this, and I do applaud them, not just for the coherent way in which they put their views across, but for the clearly very, very well researched information that they've brought into the points that they've made. They've worked very hard on this, and I think they deserve to be listened to in relation to that. Points being made by other people, we must listen to our parish councils and take on board the work they've done through their neighbourhood plan. I think that covers all the points that I want to make so far, but I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got the drift of what's happening in the meeting already. Councillor Godfrey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, I wasn't able to join in with the main site visit, but I was able to go to site at an earlier time. I think that there will be adverse impact on the integrity of Leintwardine village. My observations were that the lane, the access lane, is very narrow, and at around 12 o'clock when I visited the site, it was quite busy and difficult to get along. Basically, my view is there are too many houses in what I consider is a very remote area, and I hope the committee is minded to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Powers now, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, all my thunder has been well and truly stolen, I think, by everyone who's already spoken, and I agree with what's been said, so I'll just be really brief. Just a couple of observations. One is, we heard from the applicant's agent that there'd been no objection from statutory bodies, but there's a very clear objection from the CPRE before us in the report, which actually mentions, I believe, an NPPF paragraph that wasn't in Councillor Phillips's exhaustive list, and that's paragraph 12, where I quote, "Development should enhance the historic environment and, quote, make a positive contribution to local character and distinctiveness." Now, albeit that this is only an outline application that we're approving, it very evidently seems to be against that paragraph as well. Like others, I'm heartily sick, although I'm not now a regular member of this committee, but I get a sickening sense of deja vu coming back and hearing the same old arguments about the 5-year housing land supply and the lack of weight that we can give to the core strategy. The core strategy achieves its examination in public in 3 weeks' time, and its adoption will follow shortly thereafter. We cannot still be using the same form of words about this that we were using 2 years ago, surely. And with big decisions and controversial decisions like this, it seems to me there's a very good case for deferring these applications being heard by committee until after that examination in public, when, as we are frequently told, the core strategy will deliver us the 5-year housing land supply. As it happens, I have very robust evidence that the calculations that have been made hitherto by officers on this 5-year housing land supply are simply wrong. They are based on figures which are not sufficiently updated on a regional basis, and they fail to take into account sites which clearly will be deliverable and have been allocated to be such within the next 5 years. For whatever reason, it appears to me, and a large number of the public as well, that there has been, I don't say deliberate, but there has been evidence of foot dragging by this authority on the updating and the proper evidence base for the 5-year housing land supply. We've had an absence of annual monitoring reports
I think,
year after
Councillor,
year after
just,
year.
If I could just interrupt you, just a moment. Could we just stick to this application?
Well,
please?
it's very germane to this application, Chairman, because once again we are being told that it is the absence of a 5-year housing land supply on which the whole argument for officer recommendation is supported. So I feel it's absolutely germane, but I will shut up there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nandes, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm only going to... I've sat here and listened to the debate. I didn't go to Rosemary Lane yesterday, but I could disclose in my dim, dark past that I was a frequent visitor to the Lion on the bridge there in the 70s, and a very good friend of mine used to live in Rosemary House, so I know the lane particularly well. So I can speak from experience. Chairman, I like to think I'm a reasonably progressive person, and I like to weigh things up and come to my own conclusion. I use the planning framework as a guide, and then I weigh up and decide which way I'm going to vote. Not so long ago, I put my hand up for 130 houses in my ward in Ayleston. Took a lot of personal stick and flack for it, but I believed it was right, because I believe that Hereford is the economic centre. It's where the jobs are, where the prosperity is, and hopefully where a lot of the future is. So it augurs well, it sits together. So I'm kind of looking towards the future. I've had my go with the bat. It's not about me now, it's about the next generation and the generations after that. And I will say this about Leintwardine. Quite clearly, the arguments have been made about its rurality, its disconnection from lots of economic centres, and for those reasons, I don't believe this is a sustainable development. Obviously there's no scholastic improvement, but I also have concerns about, the people who live there clearly don't want masses of extra traffic back and forth, and that impacts in their well-being, and well-being is a really, really important thing. So forget all the economics. It's about people in rural isolation having their lives massively impacted by things that they quite obviously do not want, and for the reasons that their voice has been very loud and clear and well heard. But for the sustainability argument, I can't support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bridges, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I read this report last night, it actually persuaded me to mindful to actually accept the officer's recommendation today. However, listening to the acting ward councillors and now listening to debate today, I don't believe this accords to paragraph 14 in PPF. Therefore, I will be supporting refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've completed all the speakers pretty well. We're going to go to, I think, Bishop first.
Thank you, Chairman. I get the general message from the floor, but I do have to put words of caution across to you. In first instance, to answer the questions raised by Councillor Backshaw, Leintwardine is in the core strategy and the UDP as a main village. In the core strategy, it identifies a growth of 14%, which equates to approximately 35 dwellings. I do wonder, having heard the debate today, why it's a main village, why it's in the core strategy. Because on what's been said today, one would wonder why we're developing any houses in that particular area. But
just a moment, please. I've asked you once. Let the officer speak.
But it is in the core strategy. It was in your UDP as the main village where development will be allowed. That is contrary, I know, to what you have spoken today about. I appreciate that, but we are where we are. The site is adjacent to the settlement. There is no landscape impact. It's not an AOMB. It's not within the conservation area. There is no land designation in that respect. There are no objections from statutory consultees. CPRE are not a statutory consultee. Whilst water confirmed that drainage is acceptable, the treatment works can take the amount of sewage proposed. The devil will be in the detail in terms of the layout, the drainage, etc., which will be taken and run off the greenfield rate through a sub-system. That is standard practice, and as I said earlier on today, will be analysed by our consultants in that respect. The proposal is a sustainable proposal, and I do put words of caution across on a potential appeal and award of costs should that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Just briefly, I'll reiterate what Kevin said. I cannot say that on appeal there won't be a risk factor in terms of costs, given what the report says and what the expert opinion says. I would implore that if there is an appeal, evidence will be required to support the reasons being put forward. Could I also note, just on the procedural aspect, I note that I think Councillor Edwards, you put forward the proposal, and you did note the policies referred to by Councillor Phillips. Could I ask, when we go back to Councillor Phillips, could you go back through the policies, please? Just for the minutes. Thank you. Councillor Phillips, please.
Yes, thank you. I realise that this is a very difficult decision given the officer's recommendation, but I like to think, I'm confident that we as a community and myself have given you the strength of substantive reasons to refuse the application today, and also to give you a very strong and robust defence of that at appeal. And I can assure you that the community are not NIMBYs. They support the core strategy. They believe that 35 homes over a 20-year period is a sustainable growth. But they don't believe that 45 in one big dump is. They will work with the local authority should this go to appeal, and I believe very strongly that a community and village like Leintwardine will make a very interesting appeal indeed.
Proposal is for refusal. We have a seconder. I'm going to put that to you. All in favour of refusal, please show. How many? 14. Against? Abstain? 4. That is refused. Thank you very much.